Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Culture Books podcast. It is the 11th of August, 2024. This is episode 22 of Use of Weapons by Ian M. Banks, and we are discussing chapter 11. That's written E-L-E-V-E-N, for those who know what we're talking about with this strange book structure, and for those who don't, go back to episode 1. My name is John, and I'm joined as ever by...
Sheridan.
Hello, Sheridan. How are you today?
I'm good.
Okay, what do we do in this part of the show?
You have 30 seconds to recount what's happened in the book thus far.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Sheridan in Zakalwe is working for the Culture, which is a galactic empire of super intelligent minds that keep lots and lots of human pets. And he has been sent out to interface with less civilized meatbags. And he's travelled across the galaxy, found his old friend. He's trying to avert a war. And he last we saw him, he was about to get in a fight as a ship was approaching. Okay.
Good work.
Yes. Gosh. I was following your instructions to try and bring us up to speed.
It was much improved.
Okay. All right. And on that note,
We'll see how 5 improved.
You are now going to try and recap the chapter in 3, 2, 1.
Zakalwe and Beishe are stuck, but they find basically a cruise ship, and they get on it, and they find that creepy doctor, and then they discovered, and they use the creepy doctor's machine to blast holes in things, and they're probably going to take control of the ship and escape, but you don't know because it ends on a cliffhanger.
Okay.
That was shocking.
So you think they are going to take control of the ship? Okay.
That seems to be what he's trying to do.
Oh, you think?
What do you think he's going to do?
I think he's just trying to get the Culture to intervene.
Oh, yes, that's correct, yeah. But it's something will take control of the ship and they'll...
Yeah, I kind of want to discuss this later, but let's do it now. I think that when Scaffin earlier in the book was talking about how Zakalwe was washed up and useless, it was the reason for that is because Zakalwe has figured out the cheat code for all these horrible situations the Culture puts him in, which is that he spectacularly breaks stuff hard enough, the Culture have to intervene directly.
There is a line, though, in the chapter that does say it would be very difficult for the Culture to take control of the ship. It would be very messy.
Without starting a war. Yeah, but that's a Culture problem.
Yeah, true.
It's not a Zakalwe problem.
Yeah.
The Culture doesn't want to do any of this. The Culture doesn't want to overtly intervene. But as far as Zakalwe is concerned, if the Culture's not overtly intervening, he's getting his head hacked off.
Yeah, and I mean, he can sort of game that situation too because he knows how valuable Beishe is to them. If it was just him on his own, I think they'd just leave him.
Well, if he creates a big enough mess, they're still going to intervene to stop it becoming even more embarrassing.
True, but I think...
So all the incentives are aligning in Zakalwe make a spectacular mess just so that he can get the maximal Culture intervention as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but I think if he was on his own, they probably would just let him die. Then they'd just come and clean it up. They do. But the Culture need Beishe, so he knows they're going to come for him.
I don't think they'd casually abandon Zakalwe myself, but
not casually, but like they'd make some assessments of.
I mean, having said that as well, I think the crew on the ship are extremely restrained in the face of this lunatic that they're dealing with. And actually, there's one moment we'll get to the fight scene with the ship's officers, where it's like these guys, they're not combat experts. They've just been sent with stun guns issued to them to detain a passenger. They don't even know what he's being detained for. And then he starts busting out the Captain America moves, and the poor buggers don't really have a chance. It's desperately unfair.
I know, they're basically like below deckhands, these guys.
Yeah. Well, deckhands on the ship. They're crew on the ship. Yeah. All right, we'll go back to the opening because unusually this is not a disorientating opening. This is just a straight picking up off the last chapter, which doesn't happen too often in this book.
Yes, I thought that too.
So he crouched behind the parapet at the far edge of the old observatory, from the single approaching plane. And I did like how the plane turned out to be just a tourist bus.
Yeah, it's basically like a cruise ship or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's only like 50 odd people or something, so that's why I think it's more like a bus size. But, you know, just the whole shift from I'm going to start a fight, we're going to kill lots of people to, okay. And then we get a sense of how terrifying the culture can be because of the way they manipulate, you know, this plane, and then they manipulate everything in the spaceport to just slide our heroes through. It's very cyberpunk.
Yes.
Yeah,
they're very powerful.
Yeah, but it's more the sort of the cyberpunk, the infiltration of the system stuff, which, again, for a book written in the 80s, this was actually pretty groundbreaking sort of stuff to be talking about. Although, even in Star Wars, you know, that had R2 controlling stuff in the Death Star in a similar sort of way. All right, then. And I'm just going to give some of the dialogue from the poor tour guide. I really feel for the tour guide in this. This would have been a terrible experience for them. Extremely sorry for the delay, gentle people. It really wasn't within our control. Some sort of traffic control panic. But do let me apologise again on behalf of Heritage Tours. Well, here we are, a bit later than we expected, but isn't that a pretty sunset? The very famous Srometron Observatory. At least 4,500 years of history have been played out beneath your feet here, gentle people. I'm going to have to fairly rattle through it all to tell it all to you in time we have here, so listen close. Obviously, you don't need to be a genius to recapture the patter of tour guides, but it's still fun to see it done.
Yeah. Srometron is how they say it in the audiobook.
How did I say it?
Don't know.
I thought I got close to
you
that.
Might. You just hesitated. It's a weird word.
Yes, I'd never thought about how to pronounce it until that moment.
Yeah.
So.
I'd never thought about how it was really spelled until that moment.
And then a description of the suit playing silly buggers with these poor people's equipment. The suit's computer covertly interrogated the terminals through the effector. 2 of the terminals were switched on, one receiving a sports broadcast, another receiving music. The rest were on standby. I just love the idea of all these tourists, and they're all meant to be listening to the tour guide, but one of them's just listening to the game, and the other one's just la la la, banging through some Taylor Swift.
This suit's pretty powerful, though.
It's a full culture combat suit, so...
I know why he's so disappointed when he has to get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's Banks faced with a conundrum that the story isn't very exciting when Zakalwe is just walking around in the suit, is it?
Yeah.
Got to create some jeopardy.
What do you think about the description of the aircraft?
Oh, it reminded me a lot of the shuttle in Consider Phlebas. Yeah, and it was very dumb. I did like how Zakalwe had to get his suit to tell the auto bar how to make drinks because he just didn't want to learn how to use another system. Which is understandable. None of us want to learn how to use another system. And then when they finally get back in touch with Smar, Zakalwe, that was ridiculous. It was pure chaos after the capsule wasted the truck in the flower market and you downed that fighter. You were lucky you made it as far as you did. Where is the capsule anyway? Again, he'd gone with maximum flamboyance because, as I was saying, I think in Zakalwe's mind, he just doesn't see any benefit to him of being stealthy anymore. The culture desperately want him to be stealthy, and it's that divergence of interests is why folks like Scaffin are saying we shouldn't use this guy anymore. Anyway, so it was nice to hear from Smar again, but it was a short visit, wasn't it? I did like this description of where the module is. So that's the intermediate size spaceship that they're trying to link up with to take them back to the big culture ships. Thanks to your Nova profile escapades down there, everything's on maximum alert. We can't move anything without being seen. And if we're seen to be interfering, we might start the war all by ourselves. Describe where that capsule is again. We're going to have to passive spot it from the microsatellite and then blast it from up here to remove the evidence. Shit, this is messy, Zakalwe.
He has made it messy. Although he didn't do it deliberately, I guess. They just get frustrated that they have to use him because he's so unpredictable.
Yeah, but I think, we've seen early Zakalwe because of the structure of this book where he was trying to follow his culture instructions and not make things as messy as possible, but he's just over that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like the banter with Smar this chapter is like, I don't know, upper level when he's like, I'm hurt, you haven't called, you haven't written, sent flowers. Like, I don't know, he's being like a bit cheeky given how.
And she's got no time for it
She's
at all.
zero time for it.
Now, there's two bits of dialogue that are right next to each other, but really unrelated. I'm just going to quickly go through them. He gets off his discussion with Smar, and Beishai says, she sounds unhappy with you, Sharadanine. He shrugged. No change there. Yeah. And then the poor tour guide having to deal with this disaster. I'm really terribly sorry, gentle people. This has never happened before, never. I really am sorry. I just can't understand it. I'll try. The young man hit buttons on his pocket terminal. Hello, hello, hello. He shook it, banged it with the heel of his hand. This is this has never happened before. It really hasn't. He looked apologetically up at the people in the tour group, clustered around the single light. Most of the people were looking at him. A few were trying their own terminals with no more success than he, and a couple were watching the western sky as though the last red smudge there would give up the aircraft that had so mysteriously decided to leave on its own accord. Hello? Hello? Anybody? Please reply. The young man sounded almost in tears. The very last dreg of light left the sunset sky. Moonglow lit up some thinner patches of cloud. The flashlight flickered. Anybody at all? Please reply. Oh, please. When you think about it, okay, so, Zakalwe very carefully made sure the ship was, or the plane was going to its next scheduled destination. At that point, within minutes of it landing, its owners would be saying, where's everyone?
Yeah.
So they probably wouldn't be there more than a few hours.
You wouldn't think so.
Until someone was sent to help them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and we have one new ship name. I don't know what this means. The Osum Emanish.
So in the book, it was pronounced Osum Amananish.
Amananish. Yep,
Amananish.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't feel that it's just a funny sounding name to me.
Mm.
Okay, you're not getting anything else there. All right. And then I did love with Scaffin saying, hey, you guys need to work on a disguise. And Zakalwe, he looked up at the wall drapes. I suppose we could try and make some clothes out of stuff here, he said doubtfully. And then Scaffin, the aircraft baggage hold might prove a more fruitful source of attire. To steal the tourists' clothes.
He's just going to try and do some sort of runway project, like mock up them.
And it's one of those things, you might well make things that cover you, but they're going to stand out like dog's balls dressed in these curtains. Yeah. Okay. And then just because I know we have listeners who try and keep track of Zakalwe's hair length, thinking it has significance for before and after, we're just going to note he did shave his head here.
I thought they shaved Beishai's head.
Beishai himself. Oh, okay, it's Beishai's head getting shaved here. I thought that was.
No, it's Beishai's head.
All right, I'll pay that. The last use, the wonderfully sophisticated combat suit was put to as a razor. Then he took it off. They both changed into the rather loud but thankfully loose-fitting clothes. You can imagine tourist clothes will all be, baggy shorts and Hawaiian shirts and which is fine for transiting a port inconspicuously. You'll just look like you're another one of the travellers. Now, then we get some of the real James Bondy cyberpunky stuff. It's more cyberpunk, I guess. The earring terminal indicated which door to take. They moved along a staff-only corridor, through 2 security doors, which swung open for them even before they got to them. Then, after a pause, came out onto a huge crowded concourse full of people, screens, kiosks and seats. Nobody noticed them, because a moving walkway had just slammed to a stop, toppling dozens of people on top of each other. A security camera in the left luggage area swung up to look at the ceiling for the minute it took them to deposit the suitcase with the suit in it. The instant they'd gone, the camera resumed its slow sweeping. It feels quite sinister as well here. I mean, these poor people who are on the walkway that suddenly gets crashed just to distract everyone's attention.
It's like a holiday from hell for these people.
Yeah. Being near Zakalwe is a holiday from hell. Yeah.
So everyone on the ship is like basically on a holiday, right?
Oh.
That's why they get the doctor in to do these little...
I don't think it's so much a cruise as this is transport for these people. But, it's the classic thing. We're back in the days of liners as opposed to cruise ships, where you were trying to get from New York to London. It would still be a couple of weeks and there'd be entertainment on board because everyone who could afford a ticket was rich. So, yeah, I do like Beichai suddenly twigging. We're not just being incredibly lucky, I take it, Beichai muttered. He shook his head. Not unless you count it as incredibly lucky that we've got a near-military standard electromagnetic effector controlled by a hyper-fast Starship mind, working this entire port like an arcade game from a light year or so off. No.
I just like the idea that the reference to arcade game, though. I mean, I guess they would have that kind of...
Video arcades were a big deal by the 80s.
No, but in this world.
Oh, yeah, but the idea... it's an interesting point because, as we now know, you don't have arcades anymore when you've got games on your phone.
Yeah.
So that is an 80s reference to a thing that doesn't really
exist anymore. Not just games on your phone, but like really, really cool PC home games, like in consoles.
I mean, obviously we're a bit old for arcades, but there is that place in the Canberra Centre that's full of those machines next to the cinema.
Yeah, but they're not pumping the way they were pumping in the 80s.
No, I mean, it's mostly because it's a place where kids can go and, when I say kids, teenagers can go and hang out with friends rather than...
Yeah, and even like competitive gaming is mostly done. Like, I mean, I know they get together in stadiums and stuff, but people game online together.
Yeah,
but in their own homes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do miss the days when internet cafes would, have 50 people playing Counter-Strike. That was...
Yeah, playing some LAN.
Yeah, that was fun. Oh, well.
It was.
Lost to us. Like tears in the rain. And then there's some more of this skullduggery. They were passed through a VIP channel to the small shuttle that would take them to the orbiting station. The final security check was the only one the ship couldn't rig, a man with practiced eyes and hands. He seemed happy they had nothing dangerous on them. The earring jabbed his ear as they passed down another corridor, more X-rays and a strong magnetic field, both manually controlled. Double-checking. The shuttle flight was relatively uneventful in the station. They passed across one transit lounge in something of a commotion, due to a man with a direct neural implant seemingly having a fit on the floor, straight into a final security check. I mean, again, this poor guy who's being given a fit just to slide Zakalwe past.
I know.
Because this, enormous consciousness in another star system has decided, you've got some wires in your head I can play around with. I do, we've talked about this before. I think Banks does play it with it in this book that, things that the culture does, if anyone else did them, would seem extremely sinister, but it's wrapped up in, these are the good guys, yay.
You know my view on that. I'm still not entirely convinced they're all that good.
Okay, all right. Sheridan, down on the culture. And then a little description I wanted to go through here. The clipper drifted, then dawdled, then raced away from the station. It swung away past the sun and the gas giant Sorrowrouth. Sorrowrouth was where the module was having to keep hidden 100 kilometres deep in the vast perpetual storm that was the mighty planet's atmosphere. An atmosphere that would be plundered, mined, stripped and altered by the humanists if they had their way. What are your thoughts on that?
That one didn't really jump out at me, actually, at the time.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on mining gas giants?
They sound bad.
Like a bad thing to do?
Yeah.
Is that just because we don't like mining anymore?
Probably. Maybe they don't have climate change in this world.
Why would climate change be an issue?
Mining.
Yeah, but this is another planet, and they're taking hydrogen, and they're not going to be releasing carbon. They're a little more sophisticated than we are.
Yes, that's what I just said. They don't have climate change.
Well, they might have. It's just unrelated.
Well, I'm just saying that we don't like mining because of climate change.
The stripping away of
natural resources.
Yeah. That's just more the environmental damage. Yes, okay. And then he meets Stapp. Now, you still think the Doctor's creepy and weird?
He literally runs parties where he cuts people up.
I mean, this book started with the culture having a party where they all gave each other colds. And that was cute.
He's just a bit too into it.
Right, but he doesn't actually hurt people.
True, although these lot...
Opposed to Zakalwe, who does hurt people all the time.
I think this group's gonna... It's a risky game, because isn't this group... They can't get stuck back together because his machine's gone.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So they're all fucked.
Yeah.
They're all buggered.
Yeah. Zakalwe really does a number on a lot of people in this. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, it's the worst thing in the world for Zakalwe to be spotted by someone who recognises him from that party with the governance.
Do you reckon he's who dobbed him in, though?
Well, that's unknown. It's more that, by the time the governance notices that someone's stolen a plane and left a bunch of tourists on a mountainside, and then they go, where did that plane go? Okay, what left from that port immediately afterwards, and then they look at all the incidents and someone's obviously messed around with their systems. That's probably all detectable. Then they're onto a pretty good bet as to that Zakalwe and Baitshire. They don't need Stapp to find them.
They should have got those tourists back on the board.
Or kept them hostage.
No, just snuck on the ship some other way. Because then it wouldn't have been as noticeable. Yeah,
and they could have found out where it was going. Yeah, but there you go. You figured out a better way forward for them. Okay, anyway, so he's met Stapp and Stapp's recognised him, and that's a bad idea in general. I did like, just at the end of this little passage, are you going to the end of the line to Brescial? Stapp asked. He nodded. Yes, myself and a business associate. Dr. Stapp nodded, grinning. Ah, a business associate. Ah. No, Doctor, not a business associate, a business associate, a gentleman, and quite elderly, and in a different cabin. Would that all three descriptions were their opposite, of course. Ha, quite, the Doctor said. Another drink. So that was nice.
And he invites him to the party.
Well, that's the thing. Stapp's always so happy to see Zakalwe, and he didn't need to invite him to the super secret mutilation orgy.
Isn't he hoping that he'll just pay though?
He lets him in without into the party when we get to that without asking for payment.
True, but there is reference to payment.
I think it's more because he met Zakalwe at a governance party. He thinks Zakalwe's important and connected, or maybe he just likes him.
Maybe
he always seems very happy to see him. Until he tries to kill him. But I think he'd been well provoked at that point. I think he was within his rights. Then discussing it with Baitshire. Well, we probably aren't in any more danger because the dock's aboard than we were already. How much is that? Not too much. They're bound to work out what happened eventually. We'll never get to Brescial before they do. Then, unless I can think of something, the culture either has to let us be taken back or take the ship over, which is going to be tricky to explain and bound to remove some of your credibility. If I decide to do as you asked, Shradnin. He looked at the other man sitting alongside him on the narrow bed. Yeah, if. And all through this bit, Zakalwe's obviously feeling quite depressed. He's got this hanging over him that they're going to get discovered at any minute. There's going to be a hyperspace message saying, detain this passenger, he's naughty boy.
Yeah.
And then we've got, Baitshire saying, how long am I going to be locked up in this room? And, Zakalwe saying, well, probably a couple of weeks. And Baitshire saying, but a couple of weeks might be taking rather too much, Shradnin. Shradnin, don't worry, he said dejectedly. I doubt it'll come to that. In terms of we're going to get busted long before that. And then here's where we get a part in this chapter where it gives us a disorientating shift.
Is this the chick in the bar?
Yeah, I literally had no idea who was talking at the start of this piece of
Actually,
dialogue.
funny you say that because the audiobook is also not even that helpful. I mean, I knew it was Zakalwe, or thought likely, because the narrator puts voices on.
Does Peter Kenny do sexy lady voices?
Yeah.
Is he any good at them?
I mean, they sound like a man, but,
Okay.
it does distinguish the character.
Sure. It's always the tricky thing between when something stops being a audiobook and becomes a radio play.
I mean, he's not doing like, ooh,
All right,
I'm a sexy lady.
let's have a go at the dialogue here. You're a wicked man. Thank you. It's taken years of diligent practice, I bet. Oh no, you're going to tell me you're not wicked at all. I can see it in your eyes. Yes, it's there. Purity. I recognize the symptoms. But he put one hand on her forearm. Don't worry, it can be cured. I'll continue with this. She pushed him away, but only with the softest of pressures. You're terrible. The hand that had pushed him away lingered just for a moment on his chest. You're bad. I confess. You've seen into my soul. He looked around for a second as the background noise of the ship altered. He smiled back at the lady. But it gives me such succour to confess to one so close to a goddess-like beauty. She laughed throatily, her slender neck exposed as she put her head back. Do you normally get anywhere with this line? She asked, shaking her head. He looked hurt, shook his head sadly. Oh, why are beautiful women so cynical these days? Then he saw her gaze shift to somewhere behind him. He turned. Yes, officer, he said to one of the two junior officers he found standing behind him. Both had guns in open holsters. Zakalwe on the pull, coming a cropper there. What did you think of his chat-up lines?
Rudimentary. But, they're on a cruise ship. They wanted to have fun. Like, the woman was probably in a good holiday mood.
I mean, looking for a holiday shag, quite possibly.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure, but you don't think you fall for that kind of laying it on thick flattery?
Well, it depends who the dude is.
Okay, well, I mean, we've established the Zakalwe is a charming and attractive, physically nominal specimen.
I can't answer this question.
Okay, well, I mean, if he sidles up to your bar and starts telling you how beautiful you are...
It depends on what mood I'm in. Maybe he's got ugly shoes on and I'm like, ugh.
That'd do it, would it?
Maybe I might just get the ick because of something. Like, you never know. Like, you can't predict these things.
Okay, all right. And then I did like Zakalwe trying to convince these guys that he was really drunk, which was a good way to set himself up to clobber them in a second.
Yeah, so when he makes himself spew without using his fingers, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, he doesn't have culture glands, does he? Anyway, obviously one of his many skills is being able to throw up on demand.
I mean, I don't even know how you learn how to do that.
Yes, and then there's a lot of chaos, and he crashes Stapp's party. And then, I mean, I also thought it was a bit mean. Staps let him in, and then he immediately holds a gun to his head and says, I'm going to fire this thing, and I don't know if it's going to kill you or not.
Yeah. Well, he actually doesn't say that. He says to Stab, it
might well kill you.
It almost certainly will kill you.
Yeah. So that's a crappy...
Which was actually not true, because it probably wouldn't have.
Well, I think he was saying you're rolling the dice with a blaster at this range to your head. A stunner at this range to your head. It's always the things I love, how science fiction invented the stun gun just for narrative.
So you didn't have to kill people?
Yeah.
Yeah, how come we haven't invented a stun gun? I guess you've invented a taser.
Are the closest thing. But it's actually extremely hard to knock people out without injuring them severely.
A taser just takes you down. As soon as they stop the taser, you can get back up, can't you?
Oh, you're convulsing for a while.
Right.
Yep. Anyway, so Zakalwe's got a plan to use Stapp's machine to, instead of cutting limbs off people, to... they never really talk about what the machine does to... Because you don't need a special machine to cut chunks off people. A sword will do that quite well. So, how does the machine put the people back together again? That seems like the magical bit.
It seems to be implying that however it cuts it, you can just get it back together again. But I didn't really actually understand what he was busting up in the... Is he just making a big mess for the sake of it.
They're trying to make the biggest possible mess so the culture has to come in.
But I mean, like, I don't really understand what he's doing.
He's making the mess as explosive and loud and problematic as he can as quickly as possible.
Right.
Which is why he uses the machine to cut into parts of the ship that aren't, normally permitted to passengers. As part of this whole making a mess. And I mean, there's a line here about his motivations. All he could hope to do was to get the machine going and then attack whatever parts of the ship he could, disable it somehow. All ships tended to be complicated, and to a degree, the cruder a ship was, paradoxically, the more complicated it was too. He just had to hope he could hit something vital without blowing the thing up.
Right.
It's a very profound point, though, how more primitive machines tend to actually be more complicated.
Mm.
I did love the little switcheroo here where he's, "Okay, Doc," he told the trembling man, looking suspiciously at the blue light playing around the cylindrical section. He squatted down level with the doctor. "Go on," he nodded. The doctor swallowed. It might be better if you stood back over there." "No, let's just try it, eh?" He hit the little red button. A hemidisc of blue light shot out over their heads from the cylindrical section of the machine and sliced through the containers he had stacked against the door. Fluid spurted out of them. The shelves to one side collapsed, support severed by the humming blue disc. He grinned at the wreckage. If he'd still been standing, the blue field would have cut him in half. So the doctor's had enough of Zakalwe at this point. Has that made a credible effort to neutralise him with the resources available? I thought, good on him. The doctor is written to be sinister, but I still just look at what does he actually do in this. He helps consenting people have fun at parties.
You probably, yeah. I didn't say he was sinister. I said he was creepy.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. And he's definitely written to be creepy, but then it's like all he ever does is happy to see Zakalwe and help him, until Zakalwe's messing with his livelihood. And, Zakalwe says, if that machine breaks, then you're going to have a lot of very angry guests. Yes. And then, the ensuing chaos. I mean, Zakalwe is a chaos machine, and he's really ramping it up at this point. The thumping from behind the door got louder. The black smoke was rising in the room, and already he felt lightheaded. He pushed hard against the machine with his shoulder. It trundled forward, howling. Something gave. There's a lot going on. Yeah, and then the chapter just ends with the line, "All the lights in the lounge went out." So, who's your favourite character in this chapter, Sharon?
Oh, that's a tough one. I want to go Stab.
Okay, and why is that?
Well, he's just interesting. Okay. There wasn't a lot of characters to choose from, to be fair.
Bei Chai, the chick who got chatted up.
Yeah. Maybe the tour guide.
The tour guide was fun. But again, everyone in this chapter is a victim of Zakalwe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Anything else you took away from this chapter?
I mean, in some ways it felt a bit like a filler chapter, but you needed to have it to get them wherever they're going.
Yeah, I think obviously this is a rare chapter in that it follows on exactly from the one before.
Yeah.
And we're into this story is moving starting to move at quite a pace, having been quite slow earlier in the book. In fact, everything in the book starts happening incredibly fast from here. And I know our listeners are hoping we'll crack on with our own pacing, but it's. I did think this was very James Bondy, and this whole Zakalwe as James Bond is. We're not the first ones to.
Well, even the chatting up the chick, like that whole vibe.
Oh yeah. Which Bond?
It's definitely not a Daniel Craig. I don't think he's a Sean Connery. I think he might be
pretty much Roger Moore.
I think he's a Roger Moore.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Well, there's Timothy Dalton and that Australian
Pierce
one.
Pierce Brosnan.
What's the Australian?
George Lazenby.
He's just retired.
Yeah, I mean, he's never done much except for
no, but apparently what it is he's this is total digression, but apparently, he's like, people always come up to me and want autographs and photos, and now I'm just not doing any of that anymore. I'm out.
He's from Queanbeyan.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, which is very
A
close
town
to where
near
we live.
us.
Okay. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for listening. We will hopefully be back in your ears. Next chapter is going further into the dark past of Zakalwe, so that's exciting. Not too long to go on the book. Hopefully we'll wrap it up by Christmas.
Well, when we go away for our holiday, we might smash through it.
I need to bring the microphones, do I?
I don't know.
Okay.
I was just thinking about that, actually. I sort of want to read other books, though, on my holiday.
All right, we'll see how we go. We can take the microphones on holiday. Okay, folks, thank you so much for listening, and we will be back as soon as Sheridan reads the next chapter. Okay, bye.
Bye.